Hello everyone, it's Becca from Becca Books and Bujo, and today we are going to talk about the 11 books I read in the month of February. So before we jump into the books, let's quick go through some stats. I love numbers and I love to share them with you. If you don't like them, you can skip ahead. So the first stat, again, is 11 books read, and that amounted to 3,139 pages. It's not the highest page count ever, but still a pretty good amount. These 11 books consisted of 1 contemporary fiction, 1 fantasy, 3 historical fiction, 2 memoirs, 2 poetry collections, and 2 romance novels. As for audience, these books were geared toward, 8 of them were geared toward adult, 2 were for young adult, and 1 was a middle grade. For the format that I read these in, 4 of them were strictly physical reads, 4 of them were just on audio, 1 of them was an ebook, and 2 of them were a combination of physically reading and listening to it. Lastly, the biggest stat of them all, my average rating for the month was insane. Because, I don't know, this is like the best reading month I've ever had in the entire world. And probably the best reading month anybody has had in the entire world. Out of the 11 books I read, 7 of them were 5 stars. What? More than half of my books were 5-star reads, which is just great. I feel like I'm getting into my reading groove. I'm picking up books that I know I want to read that I will love, which is just wonderful. So my average rating for the month was a 4.5 star. That's just like unbelievable. I think my average rating for the year, I actually want to look at this. My average rating for the year so far is a 4.4. I think last year it was a 3.6, 3.7. So like, this is phenomenal. 0.7 higher than it was last year. Yeah, okay. We can stop gushing about my average rating. Needless to say, it was a great reading month. I'm going to talk about these books in a little bit different of order. Usually I go from lowest star rating to highest star rating, but I'm going to first talk about the books that I discussed in vlogs. And so I won't talk about them as much as I normally would, I guess. So the first 2 I read for a vlog where I read my favorite booktubers' favorites, and the category was memoir or nonfiction. And so I read these 2. I read I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. This was Kara from Kara's Bookshelves, one of her favorites last year. And I gave this book 5 stars. I thought it was great. I will link this video up above so that you can see my more in-depth thoughts on both of these. But it was, I mean, an extremely sad story that Jeanette tells us. I mean, her childhood was devastating. She was abused by her mother and felt like she had to be an actress because that's what her mother wanted her to do. She had so much love for her mother that she just wanted to make her mom happy. So it was really sad. But yeah, I talk more about it in the other video. Needless to say, 5 stars. How many times can I say needless to say? Then the other memoir that I read in February for this video was Finding Me by Viola Davis, and it was wonderful. I mean, this woman has an EGOT now because she got a Grammy for the reading of this, and I listened to this book, and wow, you should go listen to it. I didn't even know a lot about Viola Davis before I read this book, so I was a little hesitant. I was like, I don't know, I probably won't care that much about her, right? No, I love her, and now I want to watch everything she's been in. She just is an amazing woman, and the background that she came from and then what she gained out of that background is just phenomenal. So 5 stars for Finding Me by Viola Davis. This favorite booktuber of mine was Noelle Gallagher, and yeah, go read it. Really good. Then the other 3 that are for a vlog. Oh, there's maybe 1 more in here that was featured in a vlog. But the other 3, the vlog hasn't come out yet because there's still 1 more book that I need to read. And I hinted at these books in the end of my memoir vlog, but these are, I can't tell you the theme yet because you're supposed to guess, but I'm supposed to be reading 4 books. I've read 3 of them so far. So we'll just quick quickly go into them. I don't want to spoil too much of the vlog yet, so I don't know, whatever, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that much. Okay, so one that I read in February was Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston, a romance between the president's son and the Prince of England. It was just so cute and wholesome, and their love is just like so true right from the beginning and sticks through till the very end. And yeah, it was a 5-star read. You'll hear me gushing more about it in a future video. I also read Take My Hand by Dolan Perkins Valdez. This one is about our main character, Sybil, who is a nurse in the South post-segregation, and she is working in a clinic where they focus on women and their reproductive organs, basically, and she puts herself into the lives of a couple of her patients, and something tragic happens to those patients, and she decides she needs to help. This book was really good. Toward the end of the book, it kind of lost me a little bit in there was a trial, and so I was lost a little bit. Not lost, I guess, just more so just didn't like the monotony of the court proceedings. So I gave this one 4 stars. Still a really, really good book, and definitely one you should read because it will spark conversation and thought about how Black women are treated in the medical world, because there is still lots of racism going on there, and Black women are like 4 or 5 times more likely to die in childbirth. And yeah, so read this one. It's very good. The last one I read for that blog so far is I Must Betray You by Ruta Sepetys, and this is a YA historical fiction focusing around a young gentleman, wow, how come I can't remember his name? Christian, during the Romanian Revolution. And during the Romanian Revolution, there was lots of spies, and so Christian finds himself caught up in all of that and deciding what he should tell the government versus what he should try to hide. And yeah, it was really good. It kept me on the edge of my seat. You never knew like who Christian could trust. He never knew who he could trust. And there was really this paranoia for Christian that we got to see. It was also really good to see communism not from Russia's perspective. I feel like we know so much about the Iron Curtain, but mostly in Russia. And so I was really glad that I could learn more about communism in Romania. This one was 5 stars, obviously, and I cannot wait to read more Ruta Sepetys. The last one that I talked about in much more extent in a vlog, it was my reading vlog, my weekend reading vlog for February, and so I don't think I'm going to talk about it too much because I go into depth in it in my reading vlog, which I'll link above, is Women of Light by Callie Fajardo and Stein. This one is a multi-generational family saga. The family is an indigenous Chicano family. They live in Colorado, and the women in this family have some sort of like seeing the future. What is that called? Something where they can like connect to the other generations, the other women in the other generations. So anyway, this one mostly focuses on 2 siblings, Luz and Diego, and how they are dealing with being indigenous Chicano young people in the 1930s. Again, I talk more about this and why I gave it a 3.5 star in my reading blog, so I'll link that up above and you can check it out after the rest of these books. Okay, so now the ones that I didn't talk about in a reading vlog. This is a very different format. I don't know if I'm liking it, but it's going all right so far. Now let's talk about them lowest rated to highest rated. So the lowest rated I have was a poetry collection. I am doing Genreathon this year, which is hosted by Whitney from Tibra's Den, and she pushes you to read a different genre every month, and these genres are somewhat out of your comfort zone, and poetry was definitely out of my comfort zone. But I had a couple collections on my shelves that I wanted to read in February. I got to 1,000 Mornings by Mary Oliver. And the reason this was 3 stars is because there were some that knocked it out of the park, that I was like, wow, that I really need to sit with and think about, and what was she actually trying to get across? And I marked those ones that I really, really liked. I think I have 1, 2, 3 of them that I really, really enjoyed. And then some were middle of the road, and some were like way over my head, did not understand them whatsoever. So that's why I gave this 3 stars. I just felt it was like really middle of the road, because there were some super high highs and some like, what is even happening here, lows. Do you want to hear one that was my favorite? That'd be kind of fun. This one's cool. This one's called Foolishness. No, it's not. Sometimes I spend all day trying to count the leaves on a single tree. To do this, I have to climb branch by branch and write down the numbers in a little book. So I suppose, from their point of view, it's reasonable that my friends say, "What foolishness! She's got her head in the clouds again." But it's not. Of course I have to give up. But by then, I'm half crazy with the wonder of it, the abundance of the leaves, the quietness of the branches, the hopelessness of my effort. And I am in the delicious and important place, roaring with laughter, full of earth praise. That one I just think is beautiful, because it talks about how we are so small in this big world that is gorgeous, and we should really just marvel in the world. We are tiny little parts of that creation, and we need to make sure that we can take care of it and maintain that for future generations. Yeah, so it was good. It was good. I mean, short. I read it, I think, in one night. What's my next rated? Okay, I think then it was Nimona, which was my middle grade, and it was a graphic novel, or more like a comic, I guess. This one I gave 4 stars because it was really good, just like not tip top. We follow 2 characters. The one we see right away, well, I guess we see both of them, but the first, why can't I think of his name? It's like something that, yeah, Ballister Blackheart. He is the notorious villain of this world, and this young girl named Nimona comes to him and says, "I'm gonna be your sidekick and we're gonna take over." And so they do. They, have these fun plans that they try to complete, and normally Ballister cannot do them because he is a villain and is usurped by this good guy, the Golden Loin, I think is his name. Like, what the heck? Weird name. But with Nimona, who is a shapeshifter, she helps him basically win over all of their tasks, their, what are those called? Evil plans. But then something happens and Nimona gets a little bit too powerful, and we see some great friendship and love and found family for these 2 that many people wouldn't want to befriend, but they befriend each other, and it's very sweet. I read it so long ago, and I read it in, like, again, 2 days, and so I'm trying to remember what more there was. It was good, middle of the road for me, kind of, but like the readability kept me going, so that's why I gave it 4 stars. And it was by I'd never said, it's by Noelle Stevenson, and this author also helped in writing the Lumberjanes series, which I really enjoy. So no wonder that I enjoyed this. If you're looking for just a quick, fun, kind of like action-packed middle grade March graphic novel, I would suggest Nimona. It is good, really good. Okay, so we've done 3, 4 stars. I think the rest I have are 5 stars. I mean, like I said, more than half of the books I read this month were 5 stars. Let's start with, I think we'll go with the other poetry collection I read, which is just actually 1 poem, The Hill We Climb by Amanda Gorman. Amanda Gorman was the inaugural poet. Is that what she was called? Presidential poet? I can't remember what they called her. But she wrote a poem for the inauguration of Joe Biden in 2020. Wait, 2021. Because he was elected in 2020. That always confuses me. When did this happen, friends? Yeah, okay, January 20th, 2021. And so this is the poem that she recited at the inauguration of Joe Biden. And I remember watching it as it happened live. And I just thought, like, holy smokes, this girl is, I think she was in her young 20s. She was the youngest poet to deliver a poetry reading at a presidential inauguration. And I just was like, after that, I was like invigorated. I was like, yeah, Amanda Gorman. Yeah, Joe Biden, our country's going to get back into shape. We've got a woman vice president, a Black woman vice president, and it's going to be great. And so then when someone gifted me this, I was like, yes, I need to reread this. And then, or not reread, but read it, consume it for the second time. I don't know. Words are coming out of my mouth. Anyway, and I loved reading it. I loved that I got to mark some of my favorite parts of the poem. She basically just says that, yes, we've come to this great moment in history where a new president has been elected and a new vice president, one that we've never seen, a woman, has joined the president, but there's still more to do. We started lowly, and this hill that we climb is great, but we need to do it. We need to do it for the betterment of our country. More on how she talks about the hill we climb. She says, the hill we climb if only we dare it, because being American is more than a pride we inherit. It's the past we step into and how we repair it. Oh, beautiful. I mean, she's just like phenomenal. I can't wait to pick up her other collection that just came out. It's blue. It's really pretty. I'll put the picture of the cover here. I can't remember what it's called, but I am really excited to read more of her work. And yeah, if we merge mercy with might and might with right, then love becomes our legacy and change our children's birthright. Just, I mean, it's beautiful. It took me, I don't know, 15 minutes to read. If you listen to it that day and can't remember it, you should reread it because it's really phenomenal. Again, this is The Hill We Climb by Amanda Gorman. Now we've got my Kindle here because that's how I read this book, and I wish it still showed the cover. I don't know why it doesn't do that anymore because sometimes it shows the cover. But I will be talking about Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood. This is the third Ali Hazelwood I've read. I first read The Love Hypothesis, then Love on the Brain, and now Love Theoretically. And these are all STEMinist romance novels. That's what Ali Hazelwood coined them as, STEMinist being women in STEM and also romance. So this one, I got an advanced reader's copy from NAGALI for an honest review. And here's my honest review. I loved it. I really, really loved it. I read it during Valentine's week. It was perfect for love. It was perfect steam. Holy smokes, it was the slowest burn I have ever read. They didn't even kiss until 73% of the way through. What? But their chemistry, see what I did there, and the bond that they were able to build just like makes you want to keep going and like, when is it gonna happen? When is it gonna happen? I should talk about the characters. So this romance is between Elsie and Jack, and they are both in the physics world. Elsie is an adjunct professor at a bunch of different universities on the East Coast, and she wants to get a tenure position. And so at the beginning of the book, she is interviewing for a position at somewhere. MIT? Harvard? No? I can't remember. A big school. And she finds out that on the interview team and what could be her future coworker is her arch nemesis in physics, because there's this whole rift between theoretical physicists and experimental physicists. Elsie is theoretical, Jack is experimental. And so they hate each other's. It is enemies to lovers. And yeah. So things happen with her job that you really are rooting for her and want her to do well in this job. But then there's like all of these other fun things that are going on. She, to make more money, is like an escort of sorts. She's on this app called Faux, where she goes on dates with men, and they don't need to do anything else besides go on fake dates with them. And yeah, so she fake dates men on the side. So that's a fun little aspect of it as well. But then the relationship between her and Jack just like really builds into something really great. A couple of things about Elsie that I enjoyed. She was diabetic, and I want to know from anybody who has diabetes and when they read this book if it's good diabetes representation. I'm looking at you, Katie Colson, because I don't know. I am not one with diabetes, and so I am curious as to if she wrote some of the instances where she is low blood sugar or high and needs insulin, if that is written correctly, and what you think of that. So let me know if you've read this book and if you have diabetes and how that all works out. The other thing, she struggles with anxiety, and I think the anxiety rep is really good. I struggle with anxiety myself, and she, this poor woman is just like trying to survive, honestly. Like she sometimes doesn't even think she's gonna have money to eat. And so we see the hardships of being in education. My husband's in education. I know the hardships of being in education, especially the last few years with kids being out of school and such. And so educators, hats off to you folks, because you are wonderful. You are teaching children and young adults and adults in this case with being a professor, but yeah, you don't get paid enough for what you do. And we see that with Elsie. What else? What else did I write? Yeah, so I enjoyed the truths about academia. Oh yeah, and health insurance too. I mean, this poor girl doesn't think she's going to be able to get her insulin, which, I mean, I've heard Katie talk about this, that the fights she has to go through with her insurance company and her pharmacy in order to get insulin. It's just like, wow, to get medicine that you need to survive. Yeah, so I thought that was really good. At some points, it felt like Jack was too good to be true. He was like so friendly and so I'll give you what you need. And that was a little bit like, are you real, man? But I mean, there are men out there like that. And I think I've got one. He's a good guy. But sometimes it felt like a little bit too much. Oh, I said, at some points, Jack seems too good to be true, but I think that's the point. Elsie gets a love she deserves. Yeah, she always feels like she's not good enough. She doesn't measure up to what the world is holding her against, what her mentor in physics is holding her up against, and she finally comes into her own and is able to stand up for herself and stand up for women in science. And yeah, I thought that was really, really well done. Maybe I'm in the wrong, but I really enjoyed it. The other fun thing is there's an Olive and Adam cameo, and and actually there's a B cameo too from Love on the Brain, but Olive and Adam show up from The Love Hypothesis, and that was just really fun to see them again. So yeah, 5 stars for this romance. I hope you all pick it up when it comes out in June. And what is my favorite book of the year so far, and just such a beautiful surprise, and I'm maybe gonna cry about it, thinking about how it made me sob, and just yeah, the wonderfulness that it is. As Long as the Lemon Trees Grow by Zulfa Katu. In this one, we follow Salama in Syria during the Syrian Revolution, which is in the early 2010s, or when it starts at least. And Salama is a trained pharmacist, but because of the great need in hospitals, she quickly has to learn how to be a doctor, basically, in order to care for the constant victims of bombings and shootings. So I should start with, this is very heavy. There is a lot of grotesque scenes. Zulfa Katu is not afraid to tell it like it is. And I think that's the point of this, because we're supposed to see what was going on in Syria. Truly, what was going on in Syria during the start of the Syrian Revolution, or the Syrian conflict, or whatever you want to call it, but they refer to it as a revolution, the people from Syria. Anyway, Salama is in Homs, and she is living with her sister-in-law, who is pregnant, but Salama has lost all of her other family, and she is very torn because she feels like she needs to take care of her sister-in-law by getting her out of Syria, but she also feels this duty to her country and to the people in Syria to care for them when they are mangled and hurting and in need of a doctor. So she is so torn. She also is dealing with PTSD, and I think that this is in the synopsis. Yeah. Her PTSD comes in a physical form with this man that is conjured in her brain. His name is Kof, and he is really helping her with her struggle. And you think that he's not helping her, but he is helping her talk it through and talk about the pros and cons of both, and really urging her to leave in order to care for herself and for her sister-in-law. She also meets a young man halfway through the story named Kenan, and that makes matters even harder to decide if she should leave or not. But wow, I just, it makes me feel very lucky for the upbringing I had, because this young woman at 18 was made to make so many decisions that no young person should ever have to make, no adult should ever have to make. And I sobbed, I cried at some of the things that she had to witness, that she had to decide for her patients. It just, it was such a good book. I was kind of in a little bit of a book coma. Is that what you call it? I don't know. Like, I just couldn't pick up anything after this for a while because I just needed to think about it and grieve the end of this book. Oh, look at me. I'm hugging it. And grieve for Salama and her family and the things that all of the Syrian people have lost. Zulfa Katu is a Syrian Canadian woman currently living in Switzerland, and in the back she has a really lovely author's note talking about the Syrian conflict. And so read it. Read it. It's a YA, technically, because it is about young adults, and so it read really quickly. I read the last 200 pages, which is half of the book, in one afternoon. It was so good. Yeah, did I sell it to you? Please read it. I love hard-hitting books. Books that make me feel are just my jam right now. Books that make me feel hard, and so this was an absolute winner. Knocked it out of the park. The best book I read in February and the best book I've read this year. Definitely a contender for best books of 2023. Anyway, those are the 11 books I read this month. Let me know in the comments if you have read any of these and what your thoughts on them were. If we have opposing views, let's chat. If we have similar views, let's chat. I'd love to hear it. Like this video on your way out. Consider subscribing to my channel if you'd like to see more bookish and bullet journaling content from me, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!